Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting of the Cape Cod Gateway Commission is being recorded and broadcast on the town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20. I must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Not seeing anyone, we will now do a roll call.
Chairman Torres.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hill.
Here.
Clerk Weil.
Here.
Commissioner Dearworth. Here. Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner DeGeorge.
Here.
Commissioner Melo. Here. And Yarmouth Rep is not here this morning, but we do have a full quorum.
Okay. Might we stand and do the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Might I ask everyone to remain standing? I'd just like to have a moment of silence in memory of Tom Cahere, who was a partner of us in the transportation industry. Tom died suddenly yesterday. Well, I guess he was out jogging, I was told, and don't know the cause, but at any rate, he was a good man. He was a supporter of the airport. We worked hand in hand on a number of projects, and Tom was a great state rep for a number of years here on Cape Cod. So just a moment of silence in his memory, please. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda would be the minutes of the previous meetings, which we do not have today, so we will move that to our next meeting. Item number 5 is public comments. Do we have any public comment from anyone sitting? Yes.
I'll say
Councilor Leckie,
something.
who is our liaison from the
Yes,
town council.
Yeah, Betty Leckie, town councilor. I think this is probably Katie's last meeting, I
Yes.
don't know, but I've always found Katie to be an amazing talent, and she has done wonderful things, and she will do wonderful things. And it's always exciting when people move on to new opportunities, and it sounds like you're going somewhere you've been before, but in a new capacity. And I wish you all the best, because you're terrific, absolutely terrific. You guys had a good one here and a good run.
Thank
Really
you.
talented. And then we've got Matt stepping in, and I think he'll bring an equal force to the job. We'll see, but unmatched, Katie, really, very impressive.
Thank you.
Just my response, I think everyone sitting up here at the table echoes that same feeling, those same comments. We will be having an event later today between the hours of 2 and 4, where we have invited employees of the airport as well as other town leaders and members of the community to come and send best wishes and goodwill, and as Katie gets ready on her new flight path, wherever that might take her, bigger and better, blue skies, I hope. And we look forward to doing that later today. But we actually changed this meeting because Katie's technically, her last day is Friday tomorrow, so we wanted to work it so that she could have one more meeting before she exited out the door. So here we are. So. And actually, I was polling some of the other members, begin to think about maybe we should do this on a regular basis. I mean,
Have a party with Katie?
No, that too. That too. I'm just talking about in terms of times and days that we actually have our meetings. It's up to the commission, but we can talk about that at another time. At any rate, any other comments from any of the other commissioners? Okay, not hearing or seeing anyone, we will move into our reports from the subcommittees. Commissioner Norm Weil, who is the chairperson of the Finance Committee. Commissioner Weil.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We met on Tuesday, March 11th. The meeting was called to order at 8:33 a.m. It was a pretty ambitious schedule that we had that day. Commissioners Weil, Bailey, and Hill were all present. The meeting was held via Zoom. We tabled the reading of and an approval of the minutes of our February 4th, 2025 meeting because there were some changes that needed to be made. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly because there are things that we're going to be discussing at this meeting. but we had FIN 0325-1, review and approve Matthew T. Ilya, Assistant Airport Manager, to act as acting airport manager as of March 14th, 2025 through May 8th, 2025 at the airport management salary of grade 21, step 1 of the FY25 pay schedule. The amount is $156,838.96 annually. We had a discussion of that, and we voted to move that to further discussion and approval at this meeting. We went on to FIN connected item 0325-2 to review and approve the promotion of Matthew T. Ilya from assistant airport manager to airport manager as of May 9th, 2025, and we'll have a discussion of that and potential approval. We voted to move it to this commission for this further discussion. On to FIN 03253, review and approve the lease amendment number 1, Year 2 extension option 1, by-in between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Island Cafe and Grill LLC, DBA Island Cafe and Grill Express. That will be discussed further at this meeting. We moved, obviously, to have it presented here. We're very happy to have them as a tenant. They've been a great tenant, and happy to see that they had a first year of success here. Moving on to FIN 0325-4, review and approve the early termination of the lease by-in between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Marine Lumber Company. We voted to move that to this meeting for further discussion and approval. And connected to that is FIN 0325-5, review and approve a new 20-year land lease by-in between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Marine Lumber Operators, Inc. Again, we discussed that and moved that to, for further discussion and approval at this meeting. And we have 2 members of the organization here in person, and I'm sure they will be giving us some comments. Thank you for coming. FIN 0325-6, update of the cost for temporary coach security, tent installation, and accommodate increased passenger activity. It was a discussion item, and I know it will be discussed at this meeting. But due to the increase in activity from American Airlines, adding flights from Chicago on Saturday and Philadelphia daily during the summer season, the capacity for accommodating passengers is needed to be increased. FIN 0325-7, review and approval of the fiscal 2026 operating budget. Well, we received a presentation on the budget and had discussion of some of those items that were of specific interest. I won't go into detail here as we'll be discussing it at this meeting, but we voted to move it to the full commission. On to FIN 0325-8, review and approve amendment number 1, by-in between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and HRP Associates. Again, we voted to move this to the full commission. We had a very brief discussion of updates since the meeting. This meeting was going to be 2 days away, and we had a very long meeting. We in the interest of time, decided to defer to much discussion on that. And the meeting was adjourned at 9:38. And kudos to Mary, who got the speaking notes out in record time. I said to her I'd bring my own notes if she didn't have to do it, but she was very diligent, so appreciate that.
She does a good job.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Norm. Next will be a report from the Infrastructure and Marketing Subcommittee. Commissioner Jody George, deal with and Mabel on that committee. And Commissioner DeGeorge is the chairperson, so, gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioner. The Infrastructure and Marketing Committee met on Tuesday, March 4th at 10:30 in the morning. Commissioners DeGeorge, Bearworth, and Mailer were present, and the meeting was held via Zoom. There were no unfinished business. The only thing we discussed was new business, IN 0325-1, update on the temporary post-security tent installation to accommodate increased passenger activity. After reviewing some of the options we had, it was decided that we were going to use a harder type tent structure, which would increase the overall cost, but would provide passengers a more comfortable area with air conditioning, plenty of room to sit down. This tent is a hard-sided Mega Series option and will provide air conditioning and ambient noise buffering and a high wind load capacity, so we won't have to worry about taking it down every time there's a high wind in the area. We also provide picnic tables and umbrellas due to an area between the core building and the tent that will not be covered still. Excuse me. In the wind and rain, we would have umbrellas there for passengers to use going to and from. We had very little on the updates. The only change we had was the upcoming event on the Cub Scout sleepover due to the departure of the airport manager and project manager. We are just going to do a tour and cancel the overnight. With no other meetings, nothing else being discussed, the meeting was adjourned at 11:11. Excuse me.
Thank you, Commissioner DeGeorge, and I just want to reinforce the comment that as an airport commission, safety is our number one concern. Safety is our number one issue of discussion that we always put first and foremost, but secondly is the comfort of passengers. And so I think by improving the overall quality of this holding space, if you will, that will include air conditioning is a step in the right direction. We want to make folks feel good about Cape Cod Gateway Airport when they come, which is why we have worked so hard and diligently over the past few years to get some food and refreshments in the restaurant down the hallway. So towards that end, I think that will be money well spent. So it speaks well also of the fact that we have increased passengers coming in through Philadelphia and other cities, which we have not had in the past. So it's all moving in the right direction. So with that being said, I will move into item number 8 on the agenda, which is old business. This is COM 0225-6. It's going to be approval to adopt the proposed Cape Cod Gateway Airport MVP strategic plan as written and presented. So if someone would please make that motion, perhaps Norman, you make that motion for us, please.
Motion to approve the adoption of the proposed Cape Cod Gateway MVP strategic plan as written and presented. The sponsor is the Airport Commission, may be acted upon. We need a second.
Second, please.
Second.
Okay. The motion's been made, it's been seconded. Any discussion between Nate or Commissioner Gill?
No, I think this has been discussed.
Yeah, I
Just want to
ad
give you,
nauseam, so-
okay. In that case then, I will call the question and we will take a vote. All those in favor of item COM 0225-6 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is a vote. Okay, moving on to new business, this will be COM 0325-1. This is an approval of Matthew T. Ilya, Assistant Airport Manager, to act as Acting Airport Manager as of March 14th, 2025 through May 8th, 2025 at the airport management salary of grade 21, step 1 of the fiscal year 2025. The pay schedule actually will be $156,838.96 annually. If someone would please make that motion.
So moved.
Okay, the motion's been moved. Is it second?
Second.
Would someone read the motion, please?
I'll
I'll make the motion.
yeah,
Read it.
I'll go ahead, yeah, sure. I move for the approval of Matthew T. Ely, Assistant Manager, Airport Manager, to act as the acting airport manager as of March 14, 2025 to May 8, 2025, at the airport management salary of grade 21, step 1 of the FY 2025 pay schedule, which is $156,838 and 96 cents annually.
Thank you. Okay, in a second to that?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Anyone from the commission have any issues, concerns, discussion? Not hearing any, I will call the vote. All those in favor of COM 0325-1 as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is a vote. Matt, congratulations. We look forward to working with you in the new leadership position. I'm sure you'll be successful. You have all of us to give you the support that you need. Big shoes to fill, of course, with Katie leaving. I still try to convince her as a week ago to sort of rescind her resignation letter, but too late. At any rate, we're really happy that we have you in place, and I look forward to working with you as we move this airport forward. So thank you.
I appreciate that, thank you very much.
Okay, next is COM 0325-2. This is going to be for an approval of the promotion of Matthew T. Elia from Assistant Airport Manager to Airport Manager as of May 9th, 2025, which would be the permanent side of this temporary appointment as acting. So if someone would please make that motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move to approve the promotion of Matthew T. Elia from Assistant Airport Manager to Airport Manager effective May 9, 2025.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
first of all, I'd like to apologize to my fellow Finance Committee members on the meeting on Tuesday. I incorrectly made a point of order because I thought that this business had been active at the full commission level and was not appropriate for FinCom to take a look at it. And Katie reminded me, I lost track of this clearly. I thought it had been tabled, but Katie reminded me that the motion for the search consultant had been defeated 4-3 at the full commission meeting, which kind of resolved that business. You know, as you all know, I've been a very strong proponent of going out and doing the search. And actually, for the same reason that Katie has advocated Matt, which is our philosophy statement in the MVPCC plan that we just approved, which is that we hire and promote the best and the brightest that we can find out there. And my view on that was that, well, how do you know who the best and brightest is unless we go out and take a look? And that was the motivation behind that. For those of you that participated in the MVP strategic planning training, one of the key things we taught up front was consensus. And our definition of consensus is that I've had the opportunity to express my point of view, and I believe I have been heard. Although this may not be my first choice, I believe it is a good one, and I can and will support it. So on this item, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's not my first choice, but I believe it's a good one, and I can and will support it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other comments, any other discussion?
And no apology needed. We have a lot of active discussion, and you more than pointed out how valuable that is, and it's made us a better group because of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just have one comment. I was one that also believed in doing an open process. There was not casting any dispersion on Matt's candidacy or his qualifications in any way, shape, or form, but I just felt that we should cast the net as wide as we possibly could. Obviously, at the last commission meeting, that was voted down 4-3. Majority rules. This is a democracy, so I don't necessarily agree with it. I think we should have done it, but I'm not going to let it stand in my way to support Matt's tenure as the permanent director. I used the example that a number of years ago, before Mark Ells became the town manager, there were those on the town council that wanted to just vote him in immediately, and I was newly elected on the council and stringently opposed it. And Jessica Rath-Brassetti had asked me to chair the screening committee, and so we did actually have a screening committee. We had people from all over the country apply. Ultimately, Mark Ells did get appointed, and I'm a firm believer that cream always rises to the top, and I think in the case of, had we gone outside, that Matt would have been the number one choice. With that being said, we didn't have that support at the last commission meeting, so we'll just move this forward. But I think Matt's gonna do a terrific job, and you have our support 100%. If there's anything that we can do to help the job, make it easier for you, working with us as the commission, we're here to give you that level of support. Yes, Mark?
Mr. Chair, as part of the party of three that voted against it last time, I sincerely echo the same sentiments. I think I stated in my dissenting vote was that I thought you could do this job with sitting on your hands, and that hasn't changed, so congratulations.
Yeah, it was nothing, it was the whole concept of doing a search, had nothing to do with it. It wasn't about the person, it was about the issue. Sometimes people confuse people with positions. This was about the position in general. So with that being said, I think we've talked about it enough. I'm gonna call the question. I'm gonna call the motion. Yes, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Matt. You are our new.
I really appreciate the vote of confidence, and I completely understand the process. But I appreciate the detailed explanation there. But I completely understand. I look forward to working with the commission, and I will certainly keep you advised on things and up to speed, and you'll know if I need help. I appreciate that.
And we will charge you in the immediate to begin to look for an assistant airport manager as well as a project manager, because you'll be carrying the weight of 3 people over the next few months until we fill those positions. So don't hesitate to get that ball rolling. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
along those lines, I would ask us to take into consideration, again, to do hire a search consultant for that position. I think, I know that typically we'll put an ad out in a couple of different trade publications. It's not the same as having a deep search and a vetting of potential candidates out there. So I would ask the airport and the commission to take that into consideration.
Okay. Which we will. I tend to agree with that. That once again, I always support casting a wide net of candidates, and I think it will help you, Matt, in terms of whomever eventually gets decided. You'll have a bigger pool of candidates, if you will, as opposed to just putting it into the local AMA magazine or the typical journals that just float around New England and see what happens. I mean, that's how we were so fortunate to get you coming back from Florida, bringing you back to home, to Massachusetts. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is COM, Graham, okay.
325-3.
COM 0325-3, this is approval of the lease amendment, number 1, year 2 extension, option 1, by and between the Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Island Cafe and Grill LLC, doing business as Island Cafe and Grill. Could someone please make that motion?
Motion to approve the lease amendment number 1 for the year 2 extension option effective May 1st, 2025. By and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Island Cafe and Grill LLC, DBA Island Cafe and Grill Express, sponsored by the Finance Committee, may be acted upon.
Second, please.
Second.
Okay. Katie, do you have a comment on this, on that?
Yeah, just quickly, they're successful. Island Cafe has been successful during the season. They're not so successful when we see JetBlue and American Airlines leave for, I think, beginning of September. Their first year in season, they accounted for just over $28,000 that they made for gross revenues. It was more than that they had expected to receive in gross revenues. The initial lease was a 1-year lease with 0% gross income obtained from sales. However, in this lease, in this option renewal, we do have an annual year-round base rent that we're requesting from them, as well as a 1% gross. However, during the finance subcommittee, it was mentioned that we could potentially think about foregoing the 1% gross, only because it's been so hard for us to maintain a restaurant here, and just charge them the rent. And then year 3, we'll take a look at that option renewal and see if there's modifications to be made. So I'll turn that back to you for discussion.
Okay, is there any discussion?
As far as the 1% is concerned, last year it came out to like $284. It seems like we're definitely diming a company that's trying to provide a service here and you know, is in the startup phase, but as Katie mentions, the fact that we do it this year doesn't set the precedent, as Mom pointed out, for next year. So, you know, we can take a look at our proceeds for this year and then we'll negotiate next year to determine whether or not we have percentage.
Anyone else? Okay, not hearing anyone. Call this motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That will vote. Moving on to CON 0325-4, this is approval of the early termination of the land lease by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Marine Lumber Company, Inc. Commissioner Bailey, would you make that motion, please?
COM 0325-4, a motion to approve the early termination of the land lease by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Marine Lumber Company, Inc., so that a new 20-year lease may be executed, sponsor finance committee may be acted upon.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion is made, and we have a second. Katie, do you want to give us some commentary on that? I also see in the audience, we have members of Marine.
We do, if you could just stand up and introduce yourself,
Introduce
please.
yourself, please.
My name is Chris Hilberg. I work for the Marine Home Center, their aviation specialist.
I'm Walt Spakowski, I'm the company president.
Thank you for attending.
Sure. Thank you.
The current marine lumber lease expires in February of 2026. However, with their change in aircraft fleet, they have a desire to make facility modifications to their existing facility that they have in a rather timely fashion, which is why they requested that we cancel their existing lease early and we sign on to another 20-year lease, which is the next agenda item. Obviously, we want the next agenda item to be approved prior to this being canceled. However, let me go through some of the details. We have done this in the past. We have canceled a lease for Hangar 51 LLC and Airline Realty Trust, which is where Gull Air has its operations today. That current facility, we had I believe there were 3 years left on that current lease, and we canceled it and signed a new 20-year lease with them. They needed that for banking purposes as well. So we went ahead and moved forward with this option for marine lumber as well. The new lease will be at current fair market values, which is higher than what the existing lease is. But this is just strictly to cancel their existing lease, and then the next agenda item would be for a new 20-year lease. Any comments or questions?
Any comments or questions from anyone on the commission? And the reason we're canceling this lease is that you need to increase the size because the airplanes that have a bigger wingspan, you didn't measure beforehand.
That's his fault.
Yeah, that is my fault. Our mission, we have 28, roughly between 25 and 30 people we move every single day there and back from the mainland to Nantucket. Our mission is just that. And the Cessna Caravan that we migrated to, 2 new airplanes, synthetic vision, safety record, just for those of you who are interested, a turbine engine is 11,000% more reliable than a piston engine, than a number. So it made sense for us to migrate in that direction. Comfort, everything worked.
Capacity.
Unfortunately, yeah, capacity, opportunity for increased capacity. The unfortunate part is save using a Sawzall, the wings are just a little bit too long for the current hangar. So our mission is people, but the hangar is secondary to that, and that's why we're here today, because we're looking at potentially modifying, maybe looking at some additional lease footprint to extend one side of the hangar that will accommodate. But and to be clear, the space is space, so the other side of that hangar being unused we would like to have the opportunity at some point to sublet that to, for hangar and such. So that's why the lease is crafted the way it is. And I'd also like to comment to say thank you to both to Matt and especially Katie for pushing this through as quickly as we were able to get this done. So thank you.
Well, you have been a good lessee for a number of years, and we know that you're a lifeline between the mainland and Nantucket. terms of getting your employees back and forth on a regular basis. So even though the car is too light to fit in the garage, we'll move this forward. Okay, we'll call this vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is a vote. As mentioned, item COM 0325-5, is sort of piggyback what we just did. It's approval of a new 20-year lease, land lease by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Marine Lumber Operator. Commissioner Bailey, would you read that one also, please?
COM 0325-5, motion to approve the new 20-year land lease by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Marine Lumber Operator, Inc. at current fair market value rate. This 20-year lease will allow for bank funding requirements for facility modifications and upgrades. Sponsor Finance Committee may be acted upon.
Second, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and a second. Katie, discussion?
I think I said everything in the previous
Okay.
one.
Members from Marine, any other further discussion? Okay, we'll call this motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is a vote. Moving right along to COM 0325-6. It's been suggested, because this is tied to COM 0325-9, that we take 9 out of order. The reason being is that 9 actually approves a fence when we will put we'll be putting the temporary tent. And we can't put a tent until we have a fence up because it's a secure location. So with that being said, I'm gonna postpone that and go to COM 0325-9. Commissioner Weil, would you read that, please? This is approval of the authorization by airport management to solicit and award a bid and subsequently enter into a contract to install security fence associated with the seasonal cold room expansion tent. And now the motion, please.
The motion is to authorize airport management to solicit and award a bid and subsequently enter into a contract for a not to exceed amount of $100,000 to install a security fence associated with the seasonal cold room expansion tent. The sponsor is management and may be acted upon at this meeting.
Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made. We have a second. Katie, discussion, Matt, please.
I will do this one. And I've been focused on the first 2 items, so I'll try and focus on this, but thank you again for that. So as was suggested, the fence is a critical component of having this tent that'll hold passengers. This is part of our sterile area, which is the most secure area in the airport. So this fence design was vetted through a number of layers, TSA first, town local permitting, fire department for access, and then finally site plan review, which happened on Tuesday this week. What you see in the diagram is the employee parking lot as it exists now, and the outline of the fence with the tent and all of the buffer areas removed from prior images you've seen. So the red lines represent a solid stockade fence, which is a hard barrier, a 6-foot wood fence, and this would form the actual block. And then the orange line is the typical 8-foot chain link fence. And that runs from, you know what, oh. So the red line comes off the terminal building, comes across. The orange line parallels it, and there's a 10-foot buffer in between. And that represents a protection for TSA. So we can't have the ability for unscreened individuals to interact with screened individuals. So that's why there are 2 fences and essentially a no man's land. And then there are 2 purple exit areas. One is located on the left side here. The other one is located here. And those include a gate in case someone were to have already broken the law and be stuck in the no man's land. They can get out, but it would set off an alarm to let us know that that's happening. These exits are designed to be emergency exits, so they push open in the case of an emergency or a fire. So this went through all of those processes. We had the finance meeting on Tuesday, and we've been working on this for the past few months, so things have updated since that meeting. And essentially, both the stockade and the chain link are required for that buffer, and we're looking at about 350 feet of chain link. and then 350 feet, give or take, of the stockade. So as we look at that, we've had Airport Solutions Group put together the fence specifications. We had those from prior projects, so we're able to adapt them for this. And given the estimate, this is really a procurement process. We were pursuing the fence installation through a state contract, which we would be able to leverage an already negotiated rate, issue a town purchase order and move forward. But because we were unable to identify that so far, in an effort to keep moving this forward, we've been working with the procurement office to issue an actual bid so that we can get the gates being fabricated. And then have this installed ahead of the tent installation in late May. So to keep that moving forward, what we wanted to do was issue through and with procurement the bid, award that contract, or award the bid, and then enter into a standard contract as opposed to a typical purchase order. We usually come back to the commission anytime we do a formal bid, we always do. So that was why we're asking for the pre-authorization so that we can keep moving the process forward. We do need to have the fence in order to put the tent in, so this represents one of the pieces, and the fence has been coordinated and designed to marry into our existing security system, so the gates will be ready for the alarms and the alerts to tie in. Happy to answer any questions, and we're looking essentially for this authorization to negotiate that contract for a not to exceed value of $100,000. We estimate the final number to be about $75,000, but just to give us some leeway, that's what we're asking.
I have a couple of questions. Is there a reason that the outer fence is chain link and the interior fence is stockade?
There is. So the chain link is the standard, the 8-foot chain link with 3 strands of barbed wire. That will delineate our AOA, the air operations area. The stockade is solid so that it's actually a hard barrier. You can't pass something through there. So when TSA was consulted and looking at this, they were concerned if there was no solid fence that someone would be able to see people, communicate, and easily pass something through a chain link fence. So the second fence is the stockade solid style to prevent that.
And the height of that is?
That fence is 6 feet tall.
And that's
The
what,
chain link is 8 feet
and
tall.
that's what TSA requires, a minimum of 6 feet, is that?
This is not a typical TSA process. We had to work with them for this. We started those conversations very early, as Katie has alluded to in prior updates, and kept them posted. This is simultaneously going to and in process for an airport security plan change and update. So they have that now, but it's based on all of their feedback. We had originally proposed 2 chain link fences, and then we evolved to the solid stockade side.
The 8-foot chain link is the requirement,
Correct.
the standard requirement.
Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple. On the right-hand side, it appears that the stockade fence comes to an end, terminates.
Correct.
And it appears that the chain link fence makes a right-hand turn and extends out to the fence that borders the control tower area?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just curious why the stockade fence continues as far as it does, seeing as it's just gonna terminate anyway.
So the stockade follows the chain link, and really
Oh,
I
I
think the
see.
best way
Okay.
to answer is
Right. So the chain link bends away.
right. So the tent will be located here, and there'll be an emergency exit. There'll actually be people barricades, which we have in stock now. They're the metal typical barricades you'd see along a parade route. And so this exit from the tent will only be an emergency exit. So if you hit that crash bar, it will send us an alert in our security system. So the fence runs to here. The passengers would not have access to this because of where the barricades are here. And then they'll be corralled on this side. So we'll have some picnic tables, a restroom trailer here. So if it's a nice day and passengers do want to enjoy Cape Cod outside, they'll be able to do that, but they wouldn't have free reign to go down here.
Are there any security cameras on the far right side in that corridor between the stockade fence and the chain link fence where it's not visible from?
It's a great question. So we have security cameras on these 2 corners, and then we're actually adding a camera right here that will look at that side and be cued with that gate.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Matt, the gate, I know that's gonna be for a vendor to come in. Is that or is it our employees? That blue gate that swings out, is that carded, is it security block on it? What padlock, what type of system is that gonna be?
So that gate is a vehicle gate, it's only for our our staff to go through. So it will be chained and locked as we have other vehicle gates on the airfield. And our staff would have to go through there, but we cannot bring vehicles in there while the passengers are in that area. So essentially, we will, at night, have this area secured. The door where passengers will come out of the checkpoint here will be in alarm mode as it is now. So if you are in the TSA checkpoint now, there's a fire exit. But if you hit that fire exit, it's gonna set off an alarm, an audible alarm, and it will send us a text message to say this door is unsecured. The police officer would respond to that. So in the morning, the airlines and airport staff will be able to change the mode of that so that it'll be a free and open door after the police do a sweep of this area to confirm that everything is secure. So we'll be able to bring vendors in there really for two purposes. One is this is our generator for the building. It's diesel powered, so if we need a diesel delivery, we have to get in there. And two, there'll be a restroom facility here, which we'll have to pump out a couple of times a week. So those will be arranged in the morning, and then the first airline flight right now is scheduled to arrive around 12:20. So they'll come in. Before that, we would have the tanks pumped out.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we can take a vote on this item, COM 0325-9. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is a vote. Let's move back up to item COM 0325-6. This is an update and approval of the use of funds for the cost for a temporary post-security tent installation to accommodate increased passenger activity. Commissioner Bearworth, would you make that motion, please?
Sure. Motion to approve the allocation of fiscal year 2025 operating budget funds for the temporary post-security tent installation and associated costs to accommodate increased passenger activity, sponsored by the Finance Committee and may be acted upon.
Second, please.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
Yeah,
Continue this conversation, Katie, or Matt?
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to point out is this is Matt had given you the fence detail, but this is the overall detail of where the tent is going to be in relation to where those fence lines are. We did look at a couple of different options that were brought forward by both the Finance Subcommittee and the full commission meeting last month that were to look at having AC units put into the tent so that people are comfortable. So we did take a look at that. We do have these funds available to us already in our operating budget, but I just wanted to go over with you. So we don't need an approval for use of these funds. I want you to be aware of the change of the dollar amount that I gave you in my last update. So if you look at this first column here, this is estimates that we got in the beginning of January for what would be needed for the facility. So obviously, we need a pedestrian ramp. We need to get some cost on that, and that's to make sure we're ADA accessible in and out of the building and into the tent. The rental of the tent with chairs initially was $59,000. Sue was able to get that estimate for us. But putting in an AC unit into that tent brings that up significantly so to $134,000, but at just over $134,000. It's a tent that comes with hard sides, and I can show you a graphic in a moment of what it looks like, but that's really what we're seeing. The increase in the fence and the increase in the tent is what you're seeing for the dollar amount that we're looking at. So we were thinking that we would be somewhere in the ballpark of $150,000 to $175,000 for this seasonal tent that we're putting in. We are looking more like $265,000 to $275,000 for this seasonal tent. Now, there's some items that we're going to own outright, such as the fence, that will stay in place for next year so that we're ready for next season. The picnic tables and stuff like that will be, those are kind of small peanuts in comparison. But it's really to make our customers comfortable. It's that AC unit that increases the price. We have a line item in our fiscal year 2025 budget that has $299,000 remaining in it that is used for assets, for asset development, for asset maintenance. So we will be using that line item to cover the cost of this tenant for this season. We also have additional line items that we know that we are not going to use for the remainder of this year, such as buying FAA approved sand for the runways and taxiways, because we hope that there's no more snow on the way. We also have some sign supplies that we did not implement for this season as well. If we need to dip into that, we can. But I think the $299 that we have in our existing line item will cover it. Any questions or comments? I can show you a graphic of what the tent
Yeah, I
looks like.
have just 3 quick comments. First, the lack of signage, so that means the sign that we wanted to put up on the tower is not gonna happen.
Yes, not right now. I think we want our customers to be
That's
comfortable.
my pet peeve.
Yeah.
I want a sign so people know it's Cape Cod Gateway Airport as they come around the road. Let's build that into the budget. Secondly, on the restrooms are gonna be sophisticated restrooms, I assume, they're not gonna be little porta potties like a
Yes,
construction
I'll
site.
show you what
Because
they,
if we're giving them comfort, I wanna make sure they have comfort in the restroom, and will that be air conditioned?
yes, it will be. The restrooms will be air conditioned. That's a graphic of what they look like. They're not going to be your green bounce houses. They're going to be a little bit
They'll be
nicer.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Burke.
I'd like to understand, I can't understand how 4 picnic tables can cost $8,000.
I don't know.
So those picnic tables are not wood picnic tables.
The metal ones?
They're made out of the Everlast Trek material, so they don't weather. They're color all the way through. They're the octagon shape and they're large. They're not small standard picnic tables. So we went through and got a number of prices on those.
I think that's crazy, I'm sorry.
We can, Sue, if I can have Sue take a look at a couple of different options then, that's not a problem.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Katie, can we go back to the cost spreadsheet you had there?
Yep.
So, the electrical for HVAC, I know in the notes you say you're waiting for a quote from K&H, but in the estimate you have a non-applicable, that really should be TBD, right?
I
The-
can't see, oh, right
Number
here.
11.
The left column represents January, so the HVAC electrical wasn't considered until the last meeting where that came up. So that was a new line that got added, so it was not applicable for that one. It's blank right now because we've had the vendor out to get the quote and we're waiting to fill that in.
But now it's TBD.
Right, in the right side. We just didn't wanna,
Oh, I see what you're saying,
Misreflect
you
what
didn't wanna
was-
change, that's a reporting of what you,
right,
got it, okay, thank you.
So are we now amending this motion to exclude the picnic tables
I don't think
based
so.
on
We-
what Wendy is?
We can come back with
Okay.
different options. We can look at options and give you a cost
Okay.
estimate. We can just do that via email because I think we have the
Yeah.
funds to be able to do it. But we can just come up with different options.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I'm not hearing any, we'll vote on this. This is items CON 0325-6. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any, that is a vote. Thank you for that presentation, and we will move on to COM 0325-7, approval of the FY 2026 operating budget. Commissioner Mayo, will you please make that motion for us?
Motion to approve the fiscal year 2026 airport operating budget for submittal to the town of Barnstable, sponsored finance subcommittee and may be acted upon.
Second, please.
Second.
Okay, presentation of what's included in the FY 46 budget.
Looks like I opened the wrong one, sorry about that. Give me 2 seconds. I was ahead of myself.
While you're finding that.
I am blind.
While you're finding that, do we have the date and time that will be in front of the town council with this? Has that been determined?
It's going to be in April, so I'll look at my emails after this, but we have an April meeting for both the CIP and for the operating budget, so I'll get that for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I would invite anyone from the commission to attend those meetings. I'll be there with Matt for that presentation in front of the town council when and if it's scheduled accordingly.
Thank you. Okay, for the operating budget, just want to go through where we are for that. The proposed budget for fiscal year 2026 is $13,487,000, just over that. It's a 5% increase overall from our fiscal year 2025 budget, which was at 12.8 million. There are a number of factors that account for this 5%. I'm gonna go over those in the next slides. As always, I take a very conservative approach to the budget. When I do the budget, I have very detailed information that I provide in the justification files. The documentation that the commission was sent has those notes and has that justification within each line item as I do the budget. Also, we take a very conservative approach in the revenues. We look at revenues for only revenues associated with leases that we have in hand. Any negotiated leases that are not signed yet, they do not get entered into the budget. We use the old rates that we have, or if it's a new tenant, we don't use it at all. So that can account for some higher revenues than anticipated when we look at that. But I think that's the best way to do it, to take that conservative approach when you're looking at the budget. I always do the revenues first to see where we sit, and then I go and I do the expenses to see what modifications that we need to make in either area. So in looking at our 2026 proposed budgets for revenue, again, we review an average annual revenue for previous years for some line items. So for instance, if we're looking at where our revenues lie for jet fuel sales, or where our revenues lie for items such as landing rates, I look at previous years, I take into account new activity that we have at the airport, and I make adjustments accordingly. And again, that is all in my notation and all in my justification file. Implementation of revenue from actual signed leases and projected increases are accounted for, and then the factors for the 5% increase are in this table here. So for instance, I identified the highest areas of increases in our revenues. Air carrier landing fees, we're going to see about almost a 10% increase in that area because of the new flights by American Airlines for their Chicago flights and their Philadelphia flights. We're also seeing a significant increase last year with Cape Air. Cape Air has brought back, they have their pilot shortages no longer. They have met their requirement for their pilots. So we're seeing some more activity by Cape Air at the airport, so we also will see those landing fees increase. Jet fuel sales, I stayed conservative in the jet fuel sales. Right after COVID, we saw a really big spike, and it's starting to come down a little bit, starting to normalize, so I'm only showing a 6% increase there. In regards to FBO concessions, Atlantic Aviation has been doing quite well. Griffin Avionics has been doing well over the past several years, so we used an average level of concessions for those two companies. Building leases and hangars, we have signed new leases with a number of entities. For instance, just to give an example, because this lease wasn't approved yet, I have their old lease in the budget. So this will account for that in the fiscal year 2027 budget. But we do have new leases that we have signed, so that shows an 8.5% increase. It also shows that over the past several years, we have made modifications to our leases, that it's not only CPI, it's CPI or 3%, whichever is greater, which was something that this body wanted to see in our leases. So that is attributing to the increase as well, because we have some consistency there. Terminal leases, 26%. Obviously, we just signed a new lease with Cape Air last year. We have new leases with American Airlines. American Airlines, when they first started, they had an incentive program where they were only being charged a portion of the rent. That was the incentive that they received. Now they are going to be fully charged for the rent in the terminal building. For aviation-related land leases, again, that goes back to that 3% or CPI, whichever is greater, so we're seeing increases there. Parking concessions, that is a big increase. Because of the activity that we're seeing with the airlines, we're seeing more activity in our parking lot, and those concessions have increased substantially, which is a good thing for the airport. Passenger facility charges, that's the ticket tax that is charged as passengers buy a ticket that filter through this airport. Because of Philadelphia and Chicago, we're going to see increases there. And then the tickets that are already sold for JFK, Washington, D.C., and LaGuardia have also shown an increase in our PFC. And then earnings on investment, when we had an audit of the airport's reserves last year, that was done through Mark Milne's office. They identified that the airport had about 14 million in our reserves. Earnings on investment on 14 million is much different than 3 million where it used to be when we first started. So we're seeing some significant returns on investment there. And that's a lot of thanks to Mark Milne and how he runs his department as well. Any questions on revenues before I go to expenses? Expenses, again, we review average annual expenses from the previous years to get a sense of where we are. Several factors that account for the 5% increase from 25 to 26 include what you see in the table. Salaries, we negotiated a new contract with our union members. Some of the commissioners were a part of that process, so we're seeing an increase in our salaries. Healthcare is a big increase, not only on the healthcare side, because we're seeing insurance increases for healthcare, but also the town switched from a 50-50 share to a 70-30 share. So we're seeing more employees buy in on that. I also have a caveat in the healthcare line item that accounts for 2 to 3 employees coming on board with the healthcare where they maybe weren't before in the previous year. So we have some buffers in that. Electricity, we're seeing electricity prices rise significantly so. We raised them last year by 50%. We're raising them an additional percentage here, about 15%. This is consistent with what the town is doing. I've spoken to the town, to David Anthony, risk manager, as well as to Mark Milne about increases, and they agree with that 15%. Repair and maintenance for buildings and grounds. We have a number of buildings that need some attention. A lot of our buildings, surprisingly, are getting a little bit older. This building is, 12 years old now? 13? So we are seeing an increase in that line item. We've identified what buildings that includes in the justification if you are interested in reading through that. Repair and maintenance of heavy equipment. We have a snow blower that we are keeping together with duct tape, 2 snow blowers, that need some significant attention. During our snowstorms this season, were they both down?
All of them.
Oh, okay.
We have 3.
One is a newer piece of equipment, but this line item increased because we do need to get that fixed over this time period. Hazardous waste disposal, this is a rotating number because every 3 to 5 years we look at what elements our vortex systems and our oil water separators, to look at them to see what is needed for a pump out. We look at them on a regular basis. Our team is looking at them quarterly to see where they, what their condition is. But we know that they're on a rotation every 3 to 5 years to get fully cleaned out by companies such as Global Remediation, and then the contents disposed of properly. So this year is one of those years that we need to fully take care of some of our oil water separators and our vortex units. So that's why you see that increase high there. And then lastly, the ID badge supplies and fingerprinting line item. Typically, our badges and the printing of these badges goes through the state. And we've had a lot of problems with the state system being down. We have thousands of badges that we issue on a regular basis. And so we ended up buying into an online source that was recommended by TSA for use of badging. And this increase shows that online support that we're getting to go through them rather than the state system. That's all I have. Any questions or comments?
Members of the commission, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. At the subcommittee meeting, we talked about the budget process in quite a bit of detail. And if you could, you can just see that there's a lot of detail that goes into this 5-page PowerPoint summary. And Katie has been a focal point in the development of that, and there's extensive detail on every line item. The more significant line items have even more detail in how the numbers are arrived at. I think it's really important as we look for an assistant manager, that assistant manager have financial skills to assist in the preparation of that, because I know you mentioned that you hide for 2 or 3 weeks. It's not let anybody get near you, just it's the process of putting this all together. So it's a huge effort, and it's a job that's very, very well done. I don't know if you'll be focusing on any interns this year, given the fact that you're the only one for guidance, but in future years, I've suggested possibly getting somebody who isn't necessarily an aviation person, but a business student that comes in and can help assist in some of the research projects behind the scene, because the operation of this airport is so much more complex than people necessarily come to understand, with the fact that there's not only an aviation business, and I'm glad to see an increase in revenue from actual aviation business, but we're a real estate business and we're a fuel business, and all of them have different requirements and opportunities for increasing revenue and sharpening the pencil on expense. So a really good job is done. We're lucky to have support from the town that has a financial manager who's as good as they come, and so to have that for the town of Barnstable, as well as having the skill set that we've had here, is very, very important to the public to know that. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. We have been blessed, both at the town level through Director Mark Milne, who's probably the best in the state, as far as I'm concerned. I know a lot of finance people. He's as good as anyone I've ever met, along with what we've done here at the airport. So I commend everybody's effort and energy, but it is a critical issue. Budget is one of the most important responsibilities of the airport manager, to make sure that our revenues hopefully are always exceeding our expenses, and we keep moving forward in a positive way. So I'm sure that will continue. So that's my comment. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just real quick, and to bring us back around again, so I make sure I understand what's happening here. We have a 5% increase in revenue, and we have a 5% increase in expenses.
Yes,
So they balance out.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The
Okay.
only thing, if I could add, we did speak to Mark Milne, we ran through this presentation with him. We typically do that, we sit down and have a conversation to make sure we're in line and track with what he's thinking. We did talk to him about what was brought up at the February meeting, which is to have a policy in place for how the reserves are going to be used. So obviously today's, my last commission meeting, but he said he has no problem kind of walking through that with the commission and finding out the best course of action for that.
Good. We got that on the agenda at some point.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned it, so it's on the record, it would be included.
Okay, this is COM 0325-7. We've got motion, second, lots of discussion. We'll vote on this now. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That is a vote. Thank you. Next item is COM 0325-8, and this is approval of the amendment number 1 by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and HRP Associates, Inc. Commissioner Keough, would you make that motion, please?
Sure. I move to approve amendment number 1 to the contract dated February 18, 2025 by and between the Cape Cod Gateway Airport and HRP Associates Incorporated for pre-construction soil characterization for hard stands and the ARFF slant SRE floor drains, and for PFAS consulting services in the amount of $206,500.
Okay, the sponsor is the Finance Subcommittee, and do I have a second for that, please?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yes, with the new contract recently approved by the Commission in February of 2025, we are now identifying the various tasks that are needed for completion by HRP Associates and they include the first three tasks that you see here. So task order number 1 is pre-construction soil characterization for the hard stands. So anytime that we embark on a project, we are testing the soils for PFAS. That's something that the town implemented when PFAS started to become a problem within the town, not just at the airport. That's something that the town implemented as well. So every project, we have some element where we're testing either the soils or the materials that we're removing for PFAS. That is consistent here, so task order 1 is a pre-construction soil characteristics for the hard stand project that we're moving forward with. If you remember correctly, the hard stands are the concrete stands that we're putting on the main terminal ramp to deal with the heavier aircraft that are operating here. Task number 2 is pre-construction soil characterization for the aircraft rescue and firefighting facility in the SRE building. We have to replace the floor drains in that building. So this task is to look at the concrete that's going to be removed, the drains themselves, and the soil beneath. For task 3 is for PFAS consulting services. So what task 3 includes is the entire year from now through going into next fiscal year of the services that are going to be needed in response to PFAS. That includes our reporting that is necessary in April and in October. It includes the November meeting that we have with the public to inform the public of how advanced we have come in our results for PFAS. It includes soil borings and new wells to be put in. We talked during the November meeting about putting new wells in between the Mahar wells and the town of Yarmouth, and that includes it here in this item here. It also includes other wells that are on airport where we think we need additional information for our reporting purposes to DEP. So with those 3 tasks, it's $206,500 is the revised contract amount. The original contract amount is at a $0 amount because when we put out the RFP, we asked for their annual rates of all of their staff that would be working on the project, and it would be a task-based program. So as tasks come up, we will go through this process again for an amendment, and we'll clearly identify the tasks that are going to be included. This amendment also has the scopes of work, so if you want more detail, the scopes of work are attached to this amendment. That's all I have. Any comments or questions?
Any questions, comments from anyone?
I have something that's tangentially related. At the town council, there was recently a presentation on PFAS at the airport. Will the airport be responding with any corrections to that
I know
presentation?
we had requested through Mark Ells, and I believe he was going to speak with town council leadership, but for us to be able to present, to respond to that presentation that was made. Some of the information that was provided, unfortunately, was misleading. And so we just wanted to be corrected on the record for that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I had that discussion with Katie a while back and asked her to speak with Mark Ells and council leadership to get us on the agenda so that we could respond to some of the issues of concern that were raised at that meeting. So we're on the same page. So we're just waiting to get the green light from
That's right.
Town Hall, and then in turn we will put together a presentation with Matt, commissioners there as well as the consultants. Right. Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll vote on this then. This is COM 0325-8. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is a vote. Moving on to item number 10, we do not have a Yarmouth report. Any updates? Anything of any concern, any issues?
Not at this point in time.
Okay. Item number 11, any announcements from anyone here on the dais, any commissioners? I would only once again announce that between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. today, we will be celebrating Katie's departure down in the cafeteria. It's being maintained by Ivan Kitchen, who was our lessee of that particular facility. So we look forward to seeing anybody who can manage to sneak in there between 2 and 4 to say goodbye and wish good luck and thank you. So I think the majority of the commission will be there Anyone else have any other comments or?
Just one correction, we're not celebrating her departure, we're celebrating the time, the wonderful time you had here with us. We greatly appreciate
Point
it.
well taken. Yes, I agree. Okay, item number 12, matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. There aren't any, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? There is a vote. Our next meeting will be on April 15th, tax day.